The Lost Frost Girl, Chapter 33. They're all looking at me now. I'm trying not to notice, but I can feel dozens of eyes on me, watching every move. I raise my head eventually and focus on the Lady of the Lake. I will not look at the Earl, though I can't help but notice how proudly he sits on the stone bench now that he has won. The Queen beside him is even more full of it. She seems to glow with satisfaction. "What shall we do with the child?" the lady asks, her voice gentle. "She is no child, to be pitied and coddled," the earl says impatiently. "She is the daughter of mischief and mayhem. She is capable of things that make her most dangerous." "And yet she is a child," the lady replies. "I do not know that there is an easy decision here. What do you want to do, Owl?" "What do I want to do? I want to go after my father and drag him back. I want him to fight for me. I want to go back to school and forget any of this ever happened. I know I don't want to be here anymore with Avery stealing guilty glances at me. I want to go home. And yet it isn't so simple." She shakes her head. "You cannot just go about your own people as you did before." "Impossible for her to remain here!" the earl exclaims, standing. "Will you find her too challenging?" the lady demands. "Are you so weak in your own power that you will not allow an innocent child to remain with us?" "How about a challenge?" asks the Queen in her soft, melodic voice, soothing the Earl with a hand on his arm. "We should give the girl a choice." She looks at me, and for a split second her mouth twists with a hatred that makes my spine curl. "My dear," she says, covering it with a smile that is somehow even more chilling, "you may, of course, stay here. Your friend Avery has known the comfort of the royal court for most of his life. Why shouldn't you too know the magic of our existence? He has told you stories already, I expect, of our family. We are many and varied. We live by the sun and the moon, and are masters of all that surrounds us here. Life, death, and every decision made for the common good. Games and trials, enough to turn your head so that you may never think of home again." She pauses for a moment and looks up at the fairies, who are spellbound by her words. "Or, if that doesn't suit you," she turns back to me, her eyes suddenly gleaming, "go back into your world and do your father's work for him. Show us that you can control your power, that even out there you are loyal to us and a part of the work we do." "But," Avery steps forward, flinching as his father looks at him, "but she cannot." "Why not?" the Queen demands with another hideous smile. "She is Jack's daughter. She has already shown us she has skills. You said so yourself, dear Avery. If she doesn't want to turn away from humanity, she may do this thing for us all. For humanity herself, may she not?" "It would change her. She's already—" Avery begins. "Enough!" the Earl spits. "Avery, you forget yourself. This is royal court business. Get out of my sight. I will deal with you later." Avery stands against him for just one moment, moonlight breaking through the clouds and casting him in silver, his jaw working. Then he steps back into the darkness. "What do you say, Owl?" the lady asks, looking at me. Her gray eyes are steady, but the water around her bubbles and surges, as though she's trying to hide her anger. Is she on my side? Will she let them do this to me? What choice is it really? I can't stay here. They can all see that much. The very ground seems to writhe beneath me. It is not what you will have expected, but the Queen is right. You are part of this world now. If you are to leave it, you will have to live as one of us and prove that you can be true to this royal court. Your father's work will suit you. Her voice trails off and she sighs. It is up to you, Owl. None can make you do it. I'll do it. I hear myself saying it from very far away. I can do it. I have a quick impulsive thought. If I do it well, will you let him come back? You are in no position to strike bargains, sneers the Earl. We'll see, says the lady. If you can prove yourself an asset to us, we may be able to reconsider things. But do not count on it, Owl. If you choose it for yourself, not in the hope for others. I nod, my head spinning. Suddenly it feels as though all my blood is frozen in my veins, as if I cannot move, cannot speak. I look around me and everything is black and white, light and shade. Globe-like eyes peer at me from all sides, and I want nothing more to run. Avery, the lady says, her voice faint, see that she gets home safely. Yes, go, rumbles the Earl. Continue at the human school and report back to us regularly. Take her now, and be sure she does not move without your knowledge. It is on your head, boy. If you want to earn a place in this royal court, perhaps here is your chance. Yes, father. Avery dips his head, and I hate him for it. More than anything else, I hate the way he stoops and bends before his cruel father, who seems to see him as nothing more than a tool for his own ambitions. I stumble up the bank toward the ranks of trees, Avery just behind me, and the green man stoops to sweep me up onto even ground. Careful how you go, little owl, he says in a creaking whisper. We will be wishing you success. I turn to see that there is sympathy in the eyes of some of the royal court. But do not bring your human friend here again. I have kept her safe this time, but she does not belong. The owl swoops down to me as I head into the darkness and lands on my shoulder. Your way, little owl, she says in a soft hoot of a voice. Do it your way. And then she's off, and Avery catches up with me, and I have to concentrate just to keep my breathing level, my footsteps sure. What did you do with Mallory? He asks as we skirt through the trees. He steps through undergrowth with no sound at all while I am an elephant careening through my feet, picking fights with all the roots. I cannot find my voice to answer him. I'm not sure what I would say if I could. His presence cuts into me so that I have to charge on faster, just to get away from the sickening smell of wood smoke that I always thought I liked. I'm almost running by the time I feel the kiss of the barrier against my skin, and there in the shadows, her face blue, lit by the screen of her phone, is Mallory. Mal! I whisper, hurrying to her, a sudden lump in my throat. Owl! But are you not going to the royal court? Did he stop you? She scrambles up and looks askance at Avery, which I could hug her for. It's all over, I whisper. Maybe time's different in there. It feels like I've been gone for ages. I'm so glad you're safe. She frowns and steps forward, giving me a quick, tight hug. Are you okay? She asks in a low voice, pulling me away from Avery, who shifts his feet and gazes at the ground. He looks utterly miserable, but he's still here, doing as his father bid, and we move on toward the edge of the woodland as he dogs our steps. I don't think I've ever felt so betrayed by another human person. I trusted him with everything. He knew who I really was before I did. I thought we were the same, but I hardly knew him at all. Mallory keeps her eyes on me as we tread over dark, twisted roots, arm in arm. I'm so glad she's here. I feel like if she weren't, I'd just be in a heap by the trees. She holds me tight, even though my skin is cold with ice, and when she speaks, her voice is soft. Tell me, what happened? He got banished for being my father, even though he was determined he wasn't. They could all see it, more easily than he could. He's gone? Yep. Oh, owl. And now Avery will be watching over me while I try to do what Jack normally does. He spied on me, Mallory, for his father. I tell her in a halting voice about the Earl and the Queen and the bargain I've struck, and the silence in the woodland gets thicker and darker, and always, Avery's light steps follow ours. But how is that going to work? Mallory demands after she's listened. You're a girl owl. You're not Jack Frost. But I'm not a normal girl either. Nobody's normal, she says. You're just extra. That's all. I smile at her determined tone, but I still feel small and tight with foreboding. How can I take over for him? Does he travel the world, putting the frost on everything? It's always winter somewhere. How am I going to do all that? Avery steps forward as we emerge into the park. The room is a small, bright disk in the sky now, throwing silver outlines over everything. Skeletal trees loom over the terraced houses, and the shadows are deeper than they seemed before. A breeze spins up and whips over my face, and I think it might be Avery's work, and so I hate that it's welcome, almost soothing against my skin. They're looking for a gesture, he says, his eyes on the cluttered suburban horizon. Jack's not responsible for winter, or even for all of that frost and ice. He's the one who hangs icicles, puts fern patterns on windows, warns people across the world that winter is on its way, and reminds them that it's beautiful, even while it's treacherous. How will I get to all those places? I demand, refusing to look at him. Avery shakes his head. You can't. They won't expect you to. The Queen knows it as well as anyone. Just do the bare minimum. Any more than that is dangerous. Dangerous? Asks Mallory. The more you do, the more you could lose yourself to the magic. It's tricky for a half-human owl, I told you. So that's the Queen's plan? To ruin me by making me do Jack's work? Probably, he whispers. And you knew, didn't you? You knew that's what they were plotting? You helped them all this time? You were spying on me? Reporting back to your father? He flinches. I did try to. What is his problem anyway? I interrupt. What does he even get out of this? He craves power, Avery says, and he has a grudge against Jack. A grudge? My voice sounds unstable now, even to me. All of this over a grudge? They're powerful things, grudges, when you live forever. What is it? What did Jack do? I don't know, Avery replies. The Earl would never say. Something happened a long time ago. I'm sorry, Owl. Let me. No, I say through my clenched teeth. Don't pretend like you care now. Just go. My voice becomes a howl, and Frost zips toward him over the grass. He steps back, suddenly clumsy. You need me to help you. I thought that's what you were doing before. I'll never trust you again, Avery. I grab Mallory and we charge off toward the dark street, and to her credit, she doesn't complain, though I'm breathing in flurries of ice and my hand must be freezing her arm. We'll work it out, she says as we part. I promise, Owl, I'll help. We'll sort it. She gives me a hug and I try to return it, but I feel like something has shifted, like something on the inside is frozen solid so that I can't even hug my best friend properly. The feeling stays with me all the way home, and I'm dimly aware that it's lucky Mom hasn't woken while I was out, but I really don't care. I'm back in my room, and even here, everything feels different. I'm surrounded by all my pictures of owls, and I've already managed to freeze the entire room, so it feels like I'm back in that clearing once more. Only the Fae, the sprites and fairies and creepy goblins are now the owls, all of them watching me, demanding in hoarse whispers that I open my eyes and see the truth in it all. What do you mean? I demand as they blink their crazy eyes and shuffle their charcoal feathers. Tell me. They say nothing more. They just watch as the ice spreads to the ceiling in great spears that sparkle in the dim light of my bedside lamp. I sit, exhausted, and the room seems to darken, and I am lost, lost, lost. In the middle, marooned on my frozen bed. He rejected me. In front of the whole royal court, he refused to acknowledge that he was my father, even though they could all see it. Hadn't I expected that? Hadn't I known he would never really be a father? I look in the mirror and see how small I am, and I realize it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I already knew it. It doesn't matter what he is. He is my father, and he would rather be banished from the world than to accept it. Ice slides down my cheeks, and I don't wipe it away. I close my eyes and let it fall. "Little owl," says the wooden owl on the bedpost with a clatter and snap of its wooden beak. "Hush now. Not so much is different. Not so much you cannot handle it." I reach up and stroke the wood, shocked to find it warm, and too tired and heart sore to question it any longer. "You are real as you, as real as this room." The owl looks around, wooden feathers shuffling with a sound like dominoes falling. "Sleep, little owl. None can get to you here." Chapter 34, Fables and Earth Spirits. The Green Man. It was something that came to her that she could never quite explain. Perhaps it was a dream. Perhaps some fey magic was on the loose and found her quite by accident. However it had transpired, there it was, the words were in her head, and though she tried to let them rest there, they were not content. They demanded that night, by the light of the candle, to be spoken out loud. She knew not what she did. Her breath grew heavy. Her very mind seemed to fracture mirror-like shards that splintered silver in the darkness. And then she was out in a new world, where the stars shone brighter and the earth smelled richer, and all that was there was the most enormous ancient oak tree, tangled branches filling the horizon. "By, and what do we have here?" came a great rumbling voice. She fell to her knees and gaped as the tree turned, with a ground-shaking twist of root and limb, and formed the body of a most enormous oaken giant, with a beaming, delighted expression upon his creviced face. "What creature are you, child? To chance upon an old man in his rest. Have you come to play?" She shook her head, dumbfounded, and he chuckled, lowering his head, the branches that made his hair reaching down to tickle at her feet. She squirmed and shuffled away from him, and he grew quite still until she began to be afraid of him. "You are not fey at all," he said in wonderment, standing tall once more and casting out all light. "How do you appear thus? Do you seek trouble?" "No," she managed. "I am only lost. Where is this place?" "You wander, and have found the fey world quite by accident? How extraordinary!" He thought for a moment, and then reached out to her with a massive gnarled hand. "Come, that I may keep you warm, and I shall tell you of our hidden world, for you are here now, and there are things you should know." She ventured forth and climbed into his hand, entranced by his otherness and too befuddled to refuse. And he told her countless tales of sprites and fairies, strange woodland creatures, and even stranger water dwellers, of adventure and danger. She thought she dreamed as she sat and listened to the great rumble of his voice and the wind through his leaves, but she had never had a sweeter dream, not for all that she found in future times, that it was no dream at all. Chapter 35. "You look tired, Owl," Mom says in the morning. "Are you feeling okay?" She comes up and puts a hand on my forehead. "Get off," I mumble, moving away from her. pretending not to see the frown on her face. I'm stiff with tiredness, trying not to let last night replay in my mind as it did throughout my dreams. When I woke, the room looked normal again, the sun casting rays of white light through the gaps in the curtains onto piles of books and dusty shelves, and I looked at all my owls and wondered if I dreamed that bit. But the wooden owl winked at me when I stared at her, so I knew it was real. You feel a bit cold, Mom said, putting the kettle on. Why don't you put a sweater on? Why don't you put on a sweater? I retort absently. She gives me a look. I have on a sweater, she says, gesturing at the fuchsia pink mohair thing I remember her buying at a yard sale. I'm talking about you. Well, I'm the daughter of Jack Frost, so I don't feel the cold particularly, thank you, I say, sitting at the table, splaying my legs out and leaning my head back against the wall. Mom shakes her head. Oatmeal? Yes, please. What are you thinking? She asks, putting a mug of tea in front of me. About how we've always lived here and nothing really changes. Is that a good thing? I suppose so, I say, sitting up and putting my hands around the mug. A little mist of condensation forms on the china. Lots of things change, she says, turning to the oatmeal. You change all the time. Sometimes it's nice to have something familiar to return to. No? I guess so, I say again, blowing onto the hot tea, instantly cooling it. So, about Jack? She says after a moment, her voice hesitant. Have you thought any more about trying to find him? The tea freezes in the mug. No, I mean, I've been a bit distracted, what with Mallory's parents and then Avery, the boy, she says, taking bowls from the cupboard. You like him? No. She smiles broadly, coming to the table. How wonderful! She exclaims. She doesn't notice the frozen tea, and I concentrate very hard on making sure the oatmeal doesn't go the same way. She watches me while I eat, as if she's trying to work out what's going on in my head. I hope she can't. I'm losing track of all the lies I've told her. What if I were to tell her everything now? I play out the conversation in my mind, ending with how Jack's been exiled and I'm going to do his work. I'm honestly not sure what she'd make of all of it. She can be quite surprising sometimes, but she'd definitely be hurt by all the lying, and it's not like she can help. So I keep my mouth shut while she watches and try to think of other things. Mostly, for some annoying reason, my mind goes to Avery. I try to keep my feelings about it all at arm's length so that I don't start freezing the kitchen, but I can't help remembering his face when they voted to banish Jack. The way for an instant he tried to fight for me. He looked so ill, at ease there, and in spite of myself, I wonder what his life has been like growing up in the royal Fae court, away from humanity, with a father who despises that human part of him. I shake my head. Why should I care? Owl, what are you doing? Mom asks later, after I've spent the day slumping around school with Mallory, trying to avoid Avery and Connor. Am I still grounded? It's been a week now. I look at her hopefully. I'm dressed all in black for my Jack frosting, and I probably should have waited until she'd gone to bed. But honestly, I'm so tired I'd probably fall asleep and that wouldn't help anyone. Tell me where you're going and I'll let you know, she says, tucking her hair behind her ears. She's been working hard on her commission, and there are circles under her eyes. Is she worried about me? Is that what the circles are for? You don't need to worry, I say, picking up my scarf. I'm not doing anything stupid. Shall I be the judge of that? She asks, looking me up and down. I'm going to trust you, Owl. You're not making it easy. I was going to see Avery. I say, the lie coming smoothly. He'll be there anyway, after all, in his role as spy. Just to get some fresh air for a bit. What's he like? She asks, leaning up against the door jamb. Uh, he's got brown eyes and hair, and he's really tall. He's unusual. My voice trails off. I must be the color of a plum. Were those good things to say? And kind? Kind? Well, he's all right, I tell her. So, can I go? We'll call it an experiment, she says. I'll let you go now. and I'll give you a curfew of 10, and if all goes to plan, then we'll know. Know what? That you can be trusted. She leans in and gives me a great big hug, and for just a moment I let myself be a kid again, comforted by her familiar smells and the rough, smooth wool of her sweater. The next few days pass in a brittle whirl of ice and snow and school and Mallory's questioning, worried eyes. Avery doesn't say much when I encounter him on my nighttime missions, just watches me from a distance. I don't stop to talk to him. The work calls harder than anything else. It's about the only thing keeping me sane at the moment. Somehow it makes sense of everything. Jack may never accept me, but there's no question whose daughter I am when I'm out doing this work. And I need it. The harder I go at it, the more ground I cover, the better I feel. Alive in a way I've never felt alive before. Every movement carries traces of magic, sending cold thrills up my spine. I go out later now. I've decided I can do without Mom's questions, so I've taken to leaving by the window in the early hours of the morning, and so far she hasn't noticed. I guess I'm getting better at it. By the time I fall into bed, I'm so tired I can barely breathe, and yet I'm wired, high on frost, and a yearning to do more, do better. The church, the bridge, every major monument, and a lot of the smaller ones are glittering beneath the stars because of me. They've never looked so beautiful. It gets hard to leave them, hard to come home and get into my normal bed like a normal girl. I'm not normal. The thought makes me grin now, where it used to frighten me. Who wants normal anyway? The lack of sleep is a bit of a problem, though. Everything revolves around my mind for hours, so that by the time I'm ready for sleep, I can hardly see straight. And that's when the room starts to bustle with the noise of the owls. I think of taking down all the artwork, but they're so intent on telling me that he does not know the truth that I don't think it'd work. They just rustle at me from under the bed, and that would be even more creepy. What do you want me to do about it? I cry eventually. Am I supposed to march into the royal court and demand answers? I don't see that working very well. I don't know what that means, anyways. Jack knows the truth about me. He just doesn't want to face it. You must find him before 'tis too late. 'Tis not his doing. 'Tis not for him to be punished for another's manipulations. You'll be lost to it. I put the pillow over my face and will myself to sleep. Chapter 36. Owl! Wait! I stumble over the sidewalks in an old part of the town. They're slippery with ice, and my toes are numb. I realize with a shock that my feet are bare and blue with cold. But that doesn't matter, right? What are you doing? Avery hisses, falling in beside me. My work, I say, reaching out and drawing icicles from a window ledge. Avery waits beside me while I finish, feeling satisfied when I draw my hand away to reveal a perfect row of gleaming frozen daggers. You don't look well, he says, frowning as he stares down at me. I wish I were taller. It's demeaning to be constantly looked down upon. Why are you so tall? I demand. Why are you so cold? He rallies, shaking his head at them. It's not relevant, Owl. You're doing too much. You're not looking after yourself. What do you care? I ask, considering him. His copper eyes blaze in the near dawn murk. Even the freckles on his skin seem to glow. He grabs my arm. You're sick. You need to get home. I haven't finished, I murmur, stretching up to touch his hair. It looks so thick and warm. I was going to do the lake. You should stop, he says, his voice strained as he jerks his head out of my reach, still holding me by the arm. Owl, you look like a walking corpse. Oh, who cares? Won't your mom care? He asks, genuine curiosity in his voice. She'll be fine. I turn my back, determined to carry on with my work. He follows me around every corner, and I focus harder on making ice as a distraction, pulling deeper within myself until it's rolling out of me, easy as breathing, making whole gardens white with a touch, sending streams of crystals up streetlights where they glitter, amber, bright and magical. I forget that Avery is there, forgetting everything, running faster, 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 sending shards of ice into every dark corner. The greenhouses in the community garden are fragile and their roofs treacherous. I climb up carefully, balancing on the topmost ridge while frost spills down around me. One false move, and I'd fall through the glass. But I won't make a false move. I move from one to another, tracing patterns on the glass, making thick, spiky ridges of ice over the metal. I can feel Avery's presence down below me, and I ignore it, leaping from one greenhouse to the next until I've run out, and there are only level vegetable plots before me. I jump down and move between the neat rows, all carefully sealed off. It's frustrating. Things hiding from me beneath the plastic. I prowl along, keen eyed, looking for a mistake, for a break in the pattern. And there it is, a split in the smooth whiteness, fragile green fronds just visible in beneath, the soft round globes of out of season tomatoes. Why are they even here? Why do gardeners plant them in the winter, when they would by nature die? I reach down, my stomach sour with sudden hunger, and pluck one from the thick green stems. A bloom of condensation, a sweep of frost over the smooth red skin. It pluckers and shrivels as I hold it, useless against my power. I look at it for a long time, wondering whether I feel remorse, and I realize I don't. This is nature. I am nature's work. What are you doing? That infernal voice, his presence always there, reminding of my frailties, reminding me of his betrayal. I turn with a glare, feathers of ice spilling out around me. He reels back with shock, and I stalk from the garden, aware that he's still behind me. I head for home, my head light as storm clouds gather overhead, and I pass the park. I spot the great oak that looks like it could use a bit of frost. I run toward the tree. Owl! No! Avery is fast, but I'm faster, spurred on by some kind of mad determination to wind him up. I reach the oak and start to climb, leaving rimes of frost everywhere I touch. It feels amazing. The higher I get, the more delicate the branches, the more beautiful the ice I lay upon it. I take my time, caressing the rough bark, feeling the power that rests within the trees. It's immense, far older than anything I've touched with frost before. Child, you're taking on too much. It's a rumble of a voice that resounds deep within my head and makes my stomach roll. My feet slip on the branch, and I reach out to grip the tree, but the bark seems to shift away from me, and the world turns upside down. I land clumsily on the hard ground, stumbling forward as Avery reaches for me. Get away from me, I mutter, recovering myself as he steps away, shaking his head. What were you thinking? Clearly, I was thinking it'd be nice to fall out of a tree, I shout, moving away from it toward the path. He's far too powerful for you to take on. I've told you already. You need to pace yourself. Who are you to tell me what I need? Who else is going to tell you? He shouts. You're doing too much. You're not looking after the human part of you. His copper eyes blaze in the darkness, and even the freckles on his skin seem to glow. You cannot be Jack Frost, he continues. You're a human, a girl. There's a balance. It's important. You need to remember that. How can I forget with you around? I'm trying to help. I don't need your help. What do you do anyway? All you've got to control is a few stupid leaves. Even a kid could do that. Ice blooms out across the grass as I shout, and Avery staggers back until he can't outpace it anymore. Instead, he's forced to stand on it. He doesn't look too comfortable there, I think, with satisfaction. You think that's all there is to Autumn? To me? Are you really that blind, Autumn? Are you really that blind, Owl? He skates toward me, his face mutinous. I step back, suddenly aware of how tall he is, how angular. There's a wiry strength in him that I'd really never thought about before. Everything Autumn touches dies, he snarls. Do you know how much control I have to use every time I'm around you or one of your stupid human friends? Avery! He raises his hands and his eyes blaze. The trees around us lower their branches, the remaining green leaves swiftly turning to an amber and gold that gleams. Another second and they're falling. dry brown husks that skitter across the ice. Stop it! I shout as he starts toward me. In that instant, there are traces of the Earl in his expression, something dark and inhuman that looks right through me and won't stop, won't give in, not for anything. Avery! He flinches and stops in his tracks, tipping his head to the sky as he takes a deep, shuddering breath. The trees are released. I can stop any time I want to, he says, taking another step toward me. Can you? Just go, Avery. Just leave me alone. I put my hands out to push him back, and hail begins to fall, hitting at him. He lowers his head, fighting through it as my head starts to spin. I am doing too much, I realize, as everything gets hazy. I try to pull it back, but I can't. Everything's unraveling. Owl. Uh, wake up. You need to get back in. In? In where? I open my eyes to see Avery looming over me. I shrink back, looking around. The sky is lightening with dawn. We're sitting on the step outside my front porch. I realize a wave of nausea rolling over me. Your mom. She'll find out you've been out. I didn't know how to get you through the window. He looks up as he says it, as if he genuinely spent some time considering how to do that. She'll mind, won't she? If you're not home and she realizes? Yeah, she'll mind. I whisper, pulling myself up and digging my keys out of my pocket. Won't yours? Mine? He looks away. No, I've always lived in the royal court with the Fae. He takes a breath, looks away, looks me in the eye. I'm sorry for what happened. Right. Take the day off, he says. Tell your mom you're sick or something. You can do that, yes? Why would I? I told you you're overdoing it. You don't understand what that could do. I understand fine, thank you, I interrupt him. And I don't have any choice, do I? You'll tell them if I start falling behind, if I can't keep up with my work, and then they'll know Jack's daughter is failing, and that won't help either of us. He bites his lip. I'm not going to tell them anything, he says, shaking his head. It's not your work, Owl. I think we should get him back. This whole thing was a mistake. I don't want him back. What did he ever do for me anyway? You need him. If you carry on like this, you're going to lose yourself. I think you already are. Avery knows things I don't, and I wonder, what if the owls in my bedroom are right? What if there is some big secret thing you could answer and help me see clearly? Do I even want that? I don't want to go back to how things were before. I just can't. I tell the wooden owl, I won't. Even if it is a little more frightening, now that I've seen how Avery can change, that inhuman force of power we both have. I remember how Jack and the North Wind played on the ice that day, how horrified Avery was. I think I understand a little better now. If they took it just a step further, how destructive it would be. But I won't think about that, because they didn't. In the morning, Mom makes me take some painkillers, washed down with orange juice that stings my throat. She gets the extra blanket, the scratchy yellow one some old ancestor knitted back in the dawn of time, and puts it over my quilt. What have you been doing, little owl? She whispers as the owl on the bedpost winks at me. Little owl, I murmur. That's what he called me before they sent him away. Who, my love? Who? She sounds just like an owl, I think, as my eyelids grow heavy.